I never thought electricity could be used in such a way, Airlim says, introducing the video, which he is very excited about. Hey Rangers, today we're going to be talking about a certain scientific railgun. When I first looked at this anime, I wasn't too sure. I was kind of like, what could it be about? And I didn't realize that there are other animes within this universe that came before it, so I thought, yeah, why not give this one a go? Now I will say, in this anime I was shocked, I was kind of bored, but then there were parts where I was like, holy crap, this is awesome. Before I get into the full review, let's talk about what you get on the Blu-rays. You get 3 Blu-rays. On disc 1 you get episodes 1 to 8, which when watching all together roughly comes up to 3 hours and 9 minutes. The special features on disc 1 are episodes 5 and 7, and they have special commentary. Disc 2 you get episodes 19 to 16 as well as episode 15 commentary. Here's also 3 hours and 9 minutes as well. So on disc 3 then you get more. You get textless openings and closings, episodes 17 to 24. On disc 3 you get episodes 17 to 24 as well as in the special features textless openings and closings as well as a US trailer, and then also you get episode 15 commentary. This one is also 3 hours and 9 minutes. So the anime follows Misaka, a character who has a unique ability, the power over electricity, and I've got to admit the way that she uses the abilities to go up walls or kind of like use parts of her body, I thought genius. Now her main attack that she uses is like a railgun, where she flips a coin, the coin comes down and boom, she fires like a huge powerful beam that can pretty much destroy a lot of things. The anime can get kind of weird, and if you don't really pay attention you can lose it really easily, and I didn't like that. That was one of the parts I didn't like. At the very beginning of the anime you meet Misaka. She is a small child and she is tricked into giving her DNA to kind of this big corporation that kind of really has like a sinister plot to it. They want to make clones of her, but because she's so young they trick her and say, like, you know, you can help this person, you know, this person needs your help, will you do it? Because he can't walk and his bones and his muscles are kind of failing. She's like, yeah, no problem. And it's like, oh, you've been tricked so early on. Now when they talk about this experiment, it goes through the entire anime. It's not just like 1 or 2 episodes, but it's a continuous flow. Misaka finds out that she has sisters or clones, and they're kind of really weird, but because they always say the same thing at the end, so they'll turn around and go like, oh, I didn't know that a cat was in the road, said Misaka, understanding this. I didn't know electricity could run through walls, Misaka said, very confusedly. Those sorts of things kind of grates on you at times, but you kind of learn to accept it when all the different clones are all about. In this anime, it starts off with, you start learning about Misaka and her friends. Then soon after you find out that there are sisters, or effectively clones, and then also it's all about a character called Accelerator. And I really liked him in another anime because, again, all these animes are linked, and I'll talk about that in the next video. So Accelerator is trying to become stronger. The organization wants him to be the top dog, the person that is the strongest, and the only way of doing it is killing the clones of Misaka. So that kind of happens off, you kind of see it happening. But Misaka does meet up with one of her clones and she kind of follows around. Now the clones are completely different. They don't sound like her completely. So the clones will say, for example, ow, Misaka says, stubbing her toe while feeling a lot of pain. That sort of thing. And for a while it gets kind of like, I'm bored of this, but you kind of like it in the end. It kind of works really well. The sisters arc has got to be my favorite within this anime because it shows Misaka running around destroying government buildings because it has data on her. She wants to erase it, she wants to get rid of all of it, and that to me is kind of really cool. So you see the way that she uses her powers, her abilities, everything is completely different, and she kind of, I don't know how to say, she kind of fights with it as well, which is really, really cool. Now with the second arc, I can't really remember what its name is, but there is a little girl involved, and I kind of think this could have been saved for another anime. You could have made the main arc around the sisters and the clones, and then obviously you move into it as the second anime or the third one, and whichever one it is, and they all look after a little girl, which the main plot for that one is that she is, I think, a clone as well, but she also has a sister. If she doesn't eat these lollipops, she'll die, etc, etc. It's just kind of this anime throws a lot in for you, and you're kind of like, So let's talk about the overview of the animation. The anime is pretty decent and it's drawn really well. Something that kind of like stood out was how the characters were drawn. They weren't all the same. They weren't just, oh, quick, we'll draw this in. You know, every character will look very similar or, you know, kind of blend in with the background. I kind of saw that with Digimon Adventures Try, and I didn't really like that part. Like, I kind of like uniqueness and, you know, attention to detail effectively. The fight scenes in the anime were really well done. It didn't bore me when I saw Misaka fighting or you going against Team Item. This was something kind of like, oh, I like this, I'm okay with this. When it came to the fighting against Team Item, I generally just paid attention to it. I couldn't look away. I was so enthralled because it was actually really interesting, where you had one of the characters using bombs, using like the whole building as like a layout, which I thought was really cool. And the girl at the very end who has like kind of light laser powers, which she could just send out, and it was just like if she could walk, she'd like make these balls and they would just fire in any direction. And this was quite interesting because I was just so drawn to this fight scene. The whole thing, I think that should have just been the whole last part of the arc, because even when you look in the intro, like, you could think, yeah, this looks really cool, but none of that is in there. So I don't know why they put it in. I don't know if that's like, oh look, a little mini thing that you could look into. Let's talk about writing. When watching the anime, I did find out that it did dip quite a bit, and this to me, I got kind of, yeah, I wanted the episodes to end, or I just wanted it to be over and be like, can we finish this? I don't want to know anymore, and I just kind of either wanted to turn it off, but I kept going because I was hoping that the writing would pick up, and it does. It does pick up at times. Although I found that each episode was, I think, roughly, I'd say 20 minutes, half an hour, it did feel like it was a lot longer. Now this is good and bad, but it felt like it was flowing. There wasn't a kind of point where it stopped and you had to go, what happened in the last episode? Because they would go back and kind of repeat it a little bit, so you knew what would happen. But because it felt longer, it felt like this would have lasted for days rather than the actual like per time limit for each episode. Now I don't know why the clones would speak their mind at the very end, you know, as I said before, and I kind of think maybe this is a way to kind of determine, say, hey, you know, these aren't exactly the same, these are not all like properly thought out, but yeah, you know, we've put it in so you know the difference, so you don't get confused. You also gain like a lot of respect for them, what they have to go through, and they do have quite a sad ending. When it comes near to the end of the anime, I think they're kind of all fine, but they're all kind of like out there, and you never know what's happening, so you don't know if you're going to see the same girl or anything like that. But still, the whole Misaka clones, you gain a lot of respect for them. The action in the anime was really, really good when it was written, but it was bad at the same time because it felt like each episode was bam, there's the information, bam, 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 and it didn't give you kind of a cooldown. Now, I've seen this in many animes where you have a highly intense arc, saga, whatever, and you watch and then suddenly they'll have a come down. They'll have like a few episodes or kind of a little bit of time just to let you adjust and go, wow, that was a really good fight. Otherwise it kind of all blurs in, and I felt like this happened a lot from when it came up to the first arc to the second. There wasn't kind of really much of a break to kind of make you go, whew, okay, I'm fine with this. But that is good and bad because I wasn't bored, as I said, but this kind of blended in. I was like, kind of like, oh, is this which episode? Whereabouts is this one? When it comes into like the last arc, I do think that this could have been a season 3 or the next season over, because there's a lot more to it, and it felt kind of rushed to some degree, and I think they could have expanded on it a lot more. It wasn't written badly, but I would have changed some things if I could have. Now we're going to talk about the characters. Now I have to admit, there are things in this that kind of annoyed me. You were introduced to characters at the very beginning that had no plan whatsoever, but they're in the intro, so you kind of think, oh, so yeah, this is gonna happen. So at the very beginning of the anime, you find that Misaka is in like the kind of school, starting to study in the library, but she meets someone else and she kind of starts having this beef. But this person can control a lot of different people, and you know, she turns around and says, hey, I can't control you. There's something about your power that I can't do anything, otherwise I would. And that's it. You don't see her until like maybe a little clip later on, but you don't see her at all. And you know, there were other characters in this that just didn't make the cut. You know, you introduced a lot of Misaka's friends, but you don't see them for a long time, or they don't have a major plot, or they're there very briefly, or you won't see them for like 5-6 episodes. And you kind of think of like, why would you put it? Why not just center it around maybe 2 or 3? Now the only one character, apart from Misaka and another character which I'm going to mention in a minute, is her roommate, and oh my god, a little bit annoying. So her roommate is Shiri, I think I've said that, or Shirei. Oh my god, right, so effectively, in most animes, you do get that person that is all over one of the main characters or someone else, and she was just all over Misuka, and it just got irritating. There'll be parts where she's interacting with someone and she'd be really jealous for no reason. Or the point where Misuka would just punch her because she's like, no, and jumping on it. And you're thinking, come on, seriously, can we just get rid of this sort of thing? It's annoying when it happens with other people, but, you know, just tone it down. We know that she's got an affection. We know that she loves it. There's points where they're on the bed or Misuka isn't there and, you know, Shirei is just saying, hey, look, you know, I really miss you, and then is cuddling up to the teddy and then dry humping it, and I'm like, okay, they don't use it a lot, but oh my god, it's just one of those things where you get really bored of it. With all of that, I'm very surprised there weren't any kind of fantasies, like the whole thing that you see in some animes where it's just like, oh my god, you're amazing, and it's just fantasy. I'm very surprised that wasn't there. Tomura was the only other character that kind of stood out. He has this really weird ability that he can nullify any other power with his hand, and that's kind of cool, but I really want him to be in this anime a lot more. But when you watch another anime that he's in, you kind of understand why, and that he's not there all the time. When he does pop up, it's kind of nice because he goes against Accelerator later, and, you know, Accelerator's like, I'm more powerful, why can you stop me with your hand? You know, that sort of thing. That character really stood out to me because he generally made the anime quite interesting when he was in it. As previously mentioned, the other characters in it were just support characters. I didn't feel any connection with them, I didn't really want to know them, but it would have been nice if other parts of the anime was around them, and that's it. They were just support characters, and you know, it's like learning the names. Why? Because they're not in it. Don't bother learning the names. They're not going to be in the anime for long, or if they are, they're only a brief second or so. Not bothered about them. So what made it interesting for me? Now, I have to say the anime did dip a lot, and I was like, I'm bored of this, I don't want to continue, and I could happily turn it off and just be not bothered about it and come back to it much later on and then go, oh yeah, I remember this episode, or catch up very briefly. I found that there were some elements in here that made it interesting rather than boring. There were times where I thought that it could have had more comedy elements just to kind of make it a lot better. Maybe with some of the clones, maybe you could have one or two that was silly, or one of the other main characters actually providing this kind of comical relief. But it didn't. I think there may be like one or two times I was like, ah, that's funny, and that was it. But there wasn't enough of this, I wanted more. After watching this for a while, and when it came up to Accelerator basically just decapitating one of the Misukas, I generally didn't think, oh, it's gonna be one of those animes. But that kind of like made me go, whoa, and I had to either rewind and go, oh, I didn't know that. When there were main elements of fighting, I was engaged. I was very kind of drawn to it. And these things I did think were really cool, especially where Misuka would use the lightning, the way that she interacted with Team Item. These are the things that really kind of made it stand out to me, and I was very excited about it. So my final thoughts. Now, I will not turn around and say this is a bad anime. I do think this is an interesting anime, but I think it's one thing that you either have to watch season 1 to kind of get a kind of a feel for it, or you have to watch the other animes that are connected it so you know why the characters are like this, why they do what they do, etc, etc. The fighting was interesting. It did kind of like make me go, oh yeah, that's awesome, as I've previously said, but there could have been a bit more moments where I've gone, I really need to get behind this, I really need to be engaged, and there were parts where I was bored and I didn't really want to kind of do anything with it. I also think that the last arc could have been completely taken out and could have been replaced with something else. Or it could have, the first arc, the sisters arc, could have been the main dominant one, and that could have been the anime. As I said, Shiri was the one that really did kind of irritate me a lot in this anime, because I was like, why? What's the point of having you in there when you're constantly trying to hump your best friend or try and take her away? I think if it wasn't for Tomoru and also the clones, I do think this anime would be kind of dull. Even though with the fighting itself, it was interesting to see, but I do generally think that they brought kind of a breath of fresh air when they were entered the anime, which I did kind of like. So would I pick this anime up? If you're collecting it, yes. If you've watched the previous ones and you've really enjoyed it, then yes. If you're looking for something to start in, you have to kind of really watch the previous one, season 1, as well as a certain magical index, because you do get a general gist of the characters, because they're all in it, and I think that they're more around it. But if you're going to do it, do it. If not, then you can probably skip this anime. And I know it's really hard to say, because I do think it'd be good, but it was very confusing, very kind of everything was mashed together and there wasn't enough time to kind of process, and you kind of think, oh, I'm bored of this. So Rangers, are you thinking about picking up this anime, yes or no? Let me know down below in the comments. And if you've liked this video, like, favourite, comment and subscribe. Asks Airlim, hoping that you'll do it. And as always, thanks for watching. Airlim says, hoping that you'll have a great day.